Dude, what is going on? Hello, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this world. I am Danny. I don't know what just happened here. There you are. How are y'all doing? I guess I'm live. This is um I'm here. I'm here. How are y'all doing? Happy Saturday, December 27th. I am what days this is a great day. This is a great day. We have the moon in Aries. I bet you're feeling it. Remember, Aries is going to be a big theme for 2026 with the Saturn Neptune conjunction. Oh yeah. How are y'all? I'm right here. I'm so sorry. I didn't listen. I have you I'm always going to say it. You know that this is always going to be a thing for the next few weeks with Uranus on my ascendant, which is basically I have many Mercury retrogrades every day. And even if I'm not a part of it, it will still happen like this. Like it's inescapable. How are y'all doing? It's great to see you. I want to know about your New Year's plans. Okay, y'all. And your January forecasts are out. I hope that you saw them. It's a big month. It's a really big month, and I know that I kind of grazed what was happening in your 2026 forecast for January. Everything changes. Everything changes, and I'm going to go through a couple things that are going to be carried over, themes that are happening now this year, storylines that will be carried over till 2026, including a lot of my predictions that I've made from the beginning of the year in January. And it's a lot. So we're not going to go over all of them, but they're all in the live streams. They're all there. I mean, I don't know if you remember the prediction of someone in Toronto. I see someone in Toronto is here. That's why I'm bringing this up, making a big confession statement. And weeks later, two things happened. It was the CEO of TD Bank admitting, he did a press conference, that they'd been, I think it was embezzling money. It was like billions of dollars. But it was also within that week, it was Justin Trudeau stepping down. So where is that? Someone from Toronto, Terry. Yeah. So that was a prediction I made back in January, and all the predictions, just a lot of them came a lot later, but they all still happened. So I was 100% accurate with the predictions. And again, remember, that's how much I trust this source where I get my information. Remember, this is not me. It's me connecting with my guides. It's me going into, doing remote viewing, doing some channeling. So I don't know if you remember in March when I was channeling. Oh my goodness, I connected with someone from literally a different solar system. It was Proxima Centauri B, and got really great information as well as predictions. And that's its own video if you want to look it up. I think Danny can find the link and put it in the comments. But that was the one when I was contacted by someone when I was channeling it. It had never happened before. So it was very interesting, and took me back to 525 BC. Talked about the pyramids, and then it was, I think, 2 months later, there was that sonar that detected there's something underneath the Great Pyramids. Yeah, that storyline's not over, and that among many things. There's the earthquake, the big earthquake that I had predicted, July 29th, the 8.8. And then remember, I said something is off with it. That's not the one. It's still coming. It's still coming. I did an entire presentation too. Let me see if I can find that. I did it on Great Awakener, but I think I did a little bit here where it was a number of countries within the Ring of Fire in the Pacific where there was a there's still a lot of big activity there. And so there is something ready to be released, and it still stayed with me. So that is, to come. And I think that we, there was a couple this month in Japan, back to back to back. And that's when the government issued their statement. Okay, it looks like there's going to be a mega quake coming soon. So, I mean, we'll see. We're at that time that I had mentioned where we have seen the most volcanic activity within a year, and this is historic. And even underwater, remember underwater volcanoes as well, but also earthquakes. We've never seen this many earthquakes. And even with the earthquakes that had happened this year, the big one, July 29th, and outside, is it Camacha? That one is just, that was the one where Hawaii had the tsunami warning. But yeah, there's a lot happening. That region has been having a lot of big earthquakes. And when I say big earthquakes, 7 magnitude or more. And those are big. But just real quickly, this is the slide deck that I made. And I walked everyone through this on greatawakener.com, but you'll see all the countries that have shown up in my notebooks. They're right here. And this has been since July 29th. And so, yeah, Japan did release a megaquake watch. Okay. And then I just gave some practical information here, practical advice on if you're in any of those areas, because you want to be mindful. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of earthquakes. There's going to be a lot of land events. That's something that I had said last year. You're going to see a lot more unusual weather patterns, but also unusual natural events, including countries and states where you normally don't get the northern lights, but you've been getting them. And that's a whole other thing that has a lot to do with the solar flares, the solar activity. Our magnetic field is a little bit weaker, weaker than before. And do y'all know about the pole reversals? Well, that's a thing. I talked about it. I talked about all the cycles that we're currently in. That's what makes 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028 historic years. These are going to be years that you're just going to have a lot of different experiences, and we'll be adapting to some changes. But even with the solar flares, there was a lot of activity. And it wasn't just that. I think that last week, 3i Atlas, everyone's still monitoring 3i Atlas. Some people are saying it's this, it's that, it's this. Listen, it's energy. It's in our solar system. It's moved in. It's moved in. And I did some remote viewing with it, and you can find those videos. But one thing that I pointed out on Great Awakener is I'll show you what was really interesting, because I do talk about the solar flares. I do talk about the Schumann resonance, and something very peculiar happened on December 19th. So about 10 days ago, 11 days ago, that was the day that 3i Atlas, the interstellar object, was the closest to Earth. And I'm going to show you something here. This is another thing that I did for everyone at Great Awakener, just understanding the Schumann resonance. And I'm just going to do this very briefly here, but here's the spectrogram, right? And this is when you see amplified activity. And it's the studies have been done. This is Earth's frequency. Earth has a heartbeat. I always talk about energy and vibrations and frequency, and Earth does have one, and it rests at 7.8. Okay. And so you can see here, you can see whenever there's spikes, usually you'll see them with the solar flares, right? That especially the ones where the solar winds, when they're directed toward Earth, if they're high, I mean, X class flare would be the highest. M class would still have a huge impact on us satellites if it gets close enough, or if it has that much of an impact. But because our magnetic sphere is so, or yeah, our magnetic field, let's just keep it light, is thinner than it was 100 years ago, 150 years ago. That's why you're seeing these anomalies. That's why you're seeing the northern lights in Ohio. You're not supposed to. It's just, it's things are a little bit weak. But anyway, what I was going to point out is if you can look at here, do you see my, what is that called? The arrow? Yeah. Do you see that blip? That's an anomaly. Look at the date. It was December 19th. That was the day 3i Atlas was the closest to Earth. And that tracks. And so we had this strange anomaly within our magnetic field. We'll just keep it light. We'll keep it light. But this was just something that was helpful. And this is something that you can get on Great Awakener. I leave it in the community forum, but it's energy. You've been feeling it, but you've been seeing a lot of changes, whether they're gradual, whether they're just big in your life. You're ready. We've got Mars exalted in Capricorn, and he's about to have a huge Kazemi. If you saw your January forecast, you know what that means. And it's basically him being reborn, but you have to think about it. This has been a 2-year journey for Mars to have this Kazemi being washed and refreshed and glorified by the sun with that, the conjuncting the sun. That's what I think January 9th-ish. But you have to think about that. 2 years ago, the last time it happened was 2 years ago. So the past 2 years, he's been busy. He's been having aspects here and there. He's been going through a lot of different signs, a lot of signs that he doesn't do well in. He's been spending a lot of time. Remember, the first half of this year, even the end of 2024, Mars was retrograde for about 6-7 months, and in only 2 signs for 6-7-8 months, and one of which was Cancer. And Mars does not like being retrograde. He loses his power. He has weakened. So when he has his Kazemi in 2 weeks, a week and a half, he's reborn. He gets 100,000% of his powers back. And you're gonna see that, and you're gonna feel it, because remember, everything's energy, and these aspects that the planets have, you feel. And Mars is all about drive. You're going to feel ambitious. You're going to feel like you are ready to take the stage. Because the sun rules Leo and they love the spotlight. Anyway, it's the sun and Mars Kazemi, but remember, Venus is part of that. It's a triple Kazemi. And so it has been interesting, to say the least. So that happened. I mean, I don't even know. 2025, remember, I told you in 2024, it's going to be bonkers. It's the prequel. We're entering this brand new era that officially begins in, just a few days. Okay? and then it just builds. It builds from there. And like I said, a lot of the storylines that are happening right now, there's got to be a lot of disclosures. Okay. I think that I told you last time 2025 was a first of so many documentaries. I have a slide on that, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of documentaries. The majority of documentaries in 2025 was all about disclosure in all types of industries, all subjects, all, different, whether the government, whether UAPs, whether like controlled weather, whatever it is. So there's a movement there. And remember, also the year that most whistleblowers have come out in certain industries, and they have no protection. So that's why they're called whistleblowers. They don't have protection, and but they're risking their lives now to come out and say everything you're being told is wrong. The same thing these documentaries are doing. But what makes it challenging is because we've been conditioned since we were a child to believe in certain institutions, and we can rely on them. And so that's why it's hard, because it's like, there is a sense of betrayal and low energy frequencies that you don't want to get into. So 2026 it's gotta be bananas. It's gotta be bananas. One thing that I predicted again was, the earthquake, and it's still, I feel it. Okay. So just an FYI, that hasn't changed. And I'll tell you if anything changes. Yeah. I think another storyline that you know of is, certain files being released and redacted and they will. They will. So one of my predictions was that, and it's in my notebooks, that they will, but I didn't see files. I said, it is something else. I don't think it's coming from the place you think it will, but it is going to be coming out. Okay. And then lo and behold, what do they release? Photos. I'm like, okay, there you go. I told you it wasn't files. And then all the files that were, what is it? Redacted or whatever. But they will, because that ties into a lot of other things that are happening behind the scenes. Yeah. I think one prediction that I said was that 2026, you're going to see a little bit more of tech billionaires controlling, the government. They're going to be kind of like how, the Tesla guy did. He was like a big part of it this year, but you're going to see more next year. And yes, you're going to see this growth, unimaginable growth with AI. With AI. I think I mentioned that in your forecasts, your 2026 forecast, that this is a good time to get to know AI. It's a good time to learn how to use AI, and it's a good time to learn what AI could be like in the wrong hands. So another big storyline. Yeah. I would not be surprised if next year is the year that holograms are used. Yeah. It's so funny because, I guess this has everything to do with me being an Aquarius, which rules technology and space and all the unfamiliar. I always got to know, Aquarians ask the questions, but then I'm also a, Gemini rising 0 degrees. So I embody all that Gemini energy, which is all about the mind. And then I'm a Virgo moon, which is, as you know, it's research, it's analytical, it's service to others, all of that. But I have had debates with friends because I would always bring up, like, on your TV, you have the remote control. At this point in 2025, it feels so archaic to me. I'm just like, we shouldn't even, this is something that belongs in the 90s. Like, how is this not evolved? It will. It will. And I even mentioned something like plugging things into walls like that. It just feels so like 50s. So you're going to see a lot of changes in the way that we use electronics, anything that has to do with tech. Yeah, it's just even social media platforms. I've talked about it. Like you're going to see a lot of changes. I've talked about certain people, a lot of people, a lot of content creators editing themselves. If you watch other YouTube channels, they're like, "Oh, I can't say this," or they use code words and etc. because it's real. We're on the other side. We see we know each other. We see who gets shadow banned or demonetized or things like that. So I think a lot of people are a little bit more careful, but then there are those who are just, I don't care. They flag me, right? Um, I think that one other prediction that I made earlier this year, I think it was in June. Um, I talked about vaccines and viruses, and I even did so much research to find out this 2025 also was, this is another superlative, if you want to call it that, but 2025 was the year that we've seen more new viruses, blood viruses, etc., at any other point in history. But you're not seeing it in mainstream news, but you can you can chat GBT it. And so there is a lot happening in tech and science and medicine and geophysics and politics and banking and money. Everything is changing. You're seeing things change. Housing, yeah. Oh, we can talk about that. But one thing that happened in 2025 that was really unfortunate, and another year that was a key theme, was, you know, a lot of figures, passing, okay? Known figures passing through ways that mirror the late 1960s. Okay? There was a lot that will still happen, okay? And so I think there was a recent one too. It was the MIT professor, and that was just really unfortunate. But that's just like, again, 2025 is one of those unbelievable years where there's just so many things that happen. Drones coming out of the ocean. Come on. And so the great thing is that there was a moment where we did have Uranus and Gemini, like for several months, and everyone was starting to see the things that they needed to see. And so you have all that information. It was information overload. I feel like maybe, just maybe, it was too much information. There was just too much happening. You couldn't keep up. Some big storylines slipped through the cracks because there was always big things with, I don't know, like Diddy. I mean, like there were just so many things, boats crashing into bridges, like all over. It's just like so much news. There was so much news, and that will happen again next year. There will be an abundance of news where it's just like, this is way too much. This is way too much. Digital IDs, yeah. That was a big storyline for 2025 and will still be moving into 2026. And it's in my books with Peter Thiel or whatever his name is. But I talked about the blackouts. And even power grids. That's still with me. And I did say, now that you know this can happen right after the ones that happened in Spain, now that you know this can happen anywhere, right? How would you prepare? So now that your consciousness is expanding, there's more of this spiritual warrior in you building with Neptune. right at that 29-degree point. It's really, he's right there. It'll be a month. In 1 month, we'll move into Aries for the first time in 164 years. And again, you had a little preview over this summer. Yeah. And natural, weather events and unnatural weather events, and those will continue. And you will see how much stronger they are, how much more impact they have, and how mysterious they can be. Yeah. Like the flooding in Texas in July. There's just so many things that raised a lot of eyebrows. And I think it's good to question certain things. Yeah. I think that you saw the most revolutions that you have. And again, maybe not a lot of them came through your feed or whatnot, but they were good ones. There, Nepal, there were, many countries where the people stood up and said, no, you are not going to be our leader. We didn't know. We never said this was going to be no. And they changed all that. So you will see a lot more of that, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius, Pluto, as you know, is going to be very active in January. All those conjunctions, they're powerful. Pluto and Aquarius is power to the people. Yeah. So that's kind of a big deal. And I think that you're just seeing a lot of splitting of groups. Yeah. It was always one side against the other, but now you're seeing a little bit of I think that it's similar to what I said about 2026 and beyond. I saw more than one political party, or more than what we have. I think it's 2, and then the independents. I saw that split up. I saw a lot more. And so that's a pretty big change. And that is something in 2026. I think that someone had mentioned something. Oh yeah. There was I think Elon Musk said something about the Freedom Party or whatever, but it's actually going to be a thing. There's gonna be little movements in that direction. And so I think that it was a very eventful year. It was an extremely eventful year. Just so many questions people have that causes this uncertainty for the past few months. And so hopefully I can bring some comfort to that, saying that, yeah, some things will continue. And perhaps the biggest thing of all that, you might want to keep your eye on is did I tell you? So gold and silver making headlines, big headlines right now. Does anybody know why? So gold and silver, they reached insanely historic moments, and it was just recently. And so gold hit its all-time high. It's at it right now. I predicted back in June. And yeah, I'll find that. It's in June. I did 2 prediction live streams in June where I talked about gold, and I brought up gold, and it was in my notebooks, and I showed you 444, and gold was only at like 3,000 back then. It hit 4,444 literally 4 days ago. It came up a lot, and then I think I put it in my Instagram story because sometimes I'll do that. But I mentioned gold, and I did write down some numbers with it. And I was like, I don't know what this means. And it was like 4 point something. And so I actually Googled that one last night. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And I think that because I don't know if, so I just Googled it, and apparently gold is at a price of 3.3 or something. So I don't know. Does that mean it'll be 4.4? Who knows, right? But I did say, like, it's a good time to, like, maybe even think about, having like physical assets. And I was talking with a friend the other day, just having like cash on hand too, just in case. What if the power does go out? Thank you, Danny, for finding that clip. That was amazing. So yeah, that was me back in June. And so you can Google this, you can chat GPT it. There was no bank, there was no financial expert, there was no economist. No one had said gold would get to even 4,000 this year back in June. They started saying it maybe in September, August or September or so. That's how much I trust the source when I connect. Okay. And again, it's not me. You saw me in that video, because sometimes I get the visions, I see the things, I hear the things, I write them down. Sometimes that's all I get. So it's what I see. There's this level of trust me, I'll trust you. And the guys that I have, they've been with me for a long time. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of peace of mind. It did hit 4.44 for December 23rd. So that was 4 days ago. How interesting is that? Because 4 is all about stability, right? It's like building these foundations for yourself. And that's what the governments are doing anyway, right? By buying all this gold. And it's the same thing with silver. Silver reached an all-time high as well. Silver was at, I think, 30. It was like $30 in January. And it just hit this historic 775 today. That's, I mean, there we go, 77. No one, you just can't make this up. This is very indicative of the direction of the economies of the world. And I mentioned that when you see countries buying bucket loads of physical gold and silver, they've lost all confidence in fiat currency. And when you see, yeah, there you go. When you see China buying up all the silver, oh, that leads to something, just so you know, that does lead to something pretty big, okay? Because like the US needs that silver, right? Tesla needs that silver. Apple needs that silver to build their products. So it's an interesting everything that's happening. And again, I'm not a financial person. I don't, I'm not. I just see what I see, and I let y'all know. And I tell you, now that you know this, and I've been telling you since, July, like with the numbers rising, what a good time to buy gold. What a good time to buy silver, because it's a hedge. It's never felt anything that would happen or should happen with the economy. Gold and silver endures. It doesn't lose its value. You see it's going up in price. So it's just a good idea. And a lot of people have asked me, is it too late? Did I miss the window? No. I mean, obviously you would have gotten, if you bought it earlier in the year, then yeah, you would have actually profited really big. But no, it's never too late. It's never too late. You want to have these hedges because there's a couple things that could happen that, I mean, that I can walk you through. A couple scenarios. But it's complicated in the way that everything that's happening with the economy and the rise in price with gold and silver indicating that there may be some changes with fiat currency. And people concerned about a financial collapse, right? What's happening with the rise of gold and silver here in the US is that it's dismantling the old central banking system, as in the Federal Reserve. And you see that they've been panicking, they've been desperate, they've been lowering rates here and there, here and there. I think they did it like 3 or 4 times this year, but that doesn't do anything. How does that help inflation? How does that? Yeah, there's it just you. And that's what I'm saying. Like if you think about like the veil, even there is no veil anymore, and there won't be any, especially when we get to January and February. Everything will be out there in the open. And so there's one thing that I want to make. I just really want to distinguish the fact that the Federal Reserve isn't even part of our government. And so I think a lot of people have been understanding that, and it just hasn't been poised. It's been positioned as it is for a really long time without actually saying it is. And so they lost control of the bond market in October. They tried to cut rates to save the banks. But inflation showed, and gold at 4.4 showed that the dollar was broken. And do you remember last year in August 2024, I said, this is all going to change. I saw dollars burning. We're moving into a new system. There will be a financial change. Yeah. So this has everything to do with my other prediction with the government shutdown. I remember someone asking me, when is it going to end? And I said, it's going to go on through December, past Thanksgiving through December. And then the government shutdown ended, I think it was November 9th. And that, what a great headline for the newspapers, for the people, make them feel good. It never ended. It was a stopgap. And so that's still happening behind the scenes. They're doing their negotiations. They have a deadline. I think their deadline is January 26th, where they have to make a decision on the fiscal year, the budget, etc. That's right when Mars is going to conjunct Pluto. That's at the same time we have a 5-planet conjunction in Aquarius, the people, humanity. There could be some news around stablecoin as well, cryptocurrency. Yeah, there could be. I mean, you know that Uranus is going to be active next month in Taurus, which will, money, finances. But Aquarius is, again, like technology. So there's just it's such an intricate, and you know that I don't like rabbit holes. I don't like I don't like doing that. But from what I know is you've got that happening at the same time the housing market is in a freeze, and it's about to, at the same time they're trying to implement stablecoin, the Genius Act. At the same time, China's taken all the silver and held it hostage. So the manipulation of the markets are a little bit harder for the pickles, the people at the, there's so many factors involved. And that's why I think there is a little bit of this panic behind the scenes. And they have 1 month to make their decision. Yeah. And it's just, and regarding the housing market, because a lot of y'all have questions about housing, and Yes. I made that prediction in July. Or yeah, and I gave you dates, and they were for August. That's when it started, right? But what makes it, what brings the uncertainty there is the federal cut rates. Usually helps housing, right? But because gold and silver are, the banks are, they're uncertain about inflation, so they're not lending. Even if the Fed rate is lower, the mortgage rate is still going to be high. The people who bought during COVID with the 2% mortgage rate, oh, they're not selling. To move into a situation where, yeah, they have a new home, but at a 7% mortgage rate, no, they're not selling. So there may be something there where, yeah, there could be a freeze. And that's why I say assets are always good, gold, silver, even housing property. And no matter what happens with the housing market, it's always good to have assets no matter what. That is the biggest hedge. But if you have all this gold and silver, while there is this transition and uncertainty with fiat currency, you're fine. Because remember, to hedge, like, it holds its value. And it looks like it's in great, like you're going to be good. And so the Federal Reserve, you know that it was July, September, November, and December. They just had one, didn't they? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they cut the rate. I know they got together. They were trying to save the bond market. But anyway, that's a lot of times for them to meet. And what they're going to do is they're just going to print more money. Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. And when they print more money, that money just already has no value. That's why all the other countries are, and they're buying gold. Like I said, they've lost faith in currency. Yeah. So it's just something to consider for you moving forward. I mean, there could be some big announcements. Remember, even Mercury will conjunct Pluto next month. Mercury's going to be very active in Capricorn, which, you know, is strongly associated with like big institutions. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know. It's just like, it is interesting to think about because I've said a lot of these. What I've said similar things the past few months. But after what happened this past week, now you see the reality. You're seeing what I saw, right? And so when it comes to the end of January, when Congress has to make a decision, because remember, the government shutdown didn't shut down, right? Or it didn't reopen. They're either way, they have this big choice on whether to save the dollar, yeah, or save the government printing while our debt is at the highest it's ever been to. I think, was it 38 trillion? And so that's just, I can see why things are not easy for them. They didn't have control the way that they used to. I think that there are many things that happened over the spring and summer that upset a lot of countries, and they're retaliating. And so I think that one of your questions, Shiny Tribe, you asked, will we lose money that's in our bank accounts? So that's a really good question. I would, if I were you, I would look up the Dodds Act. because there's and again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not any of that. I do not know anything about banking and stuff. All I know is I have visions, I see them, I write them down, they come true. I look a little bit into it because a lot of things in my notebooks, as you know, I have to just figure it out. Sometimes I get dates. I have to Google, well, what's happening this date and et cetera, et cetera. And so I do have to do a little bit of research. And one thing that I did is I came across some things that indicate, if you remember 2008, when we did have the financial collapse and the banks had a bail-in or a bailout, right? They had a bailout. So the government sent them, billions. Do you remember that? When CEOs were getting 25 billion bonuses for going through this tough time. And the people got nothing. Do you remember that? Well, should there be another collapse, the banks are not protected. And what they can do is called a bail-in. And I'm not sure it will ever get to that point, but the most that could happen is this transition into this new currency, and there can just be changes because your money's like FDIC insured, right? And so the only way something could, if there was one thing that could happen, it would really depend on what Congress comes up with their decision. January 26th. I think January 30th is the deadline. Yeah. So whatever they come up with, there's a lot of different ripple effects. There's a lot of different directions things can go. Okay. And so because banks are scared, they're still kind of scared. I think that the first thing that could happen is that because the government shutdown didn't end, it's still technically, it was a pause gap. They have until the 31st. If they don't come up with a decision, there could be another one, right? Another government shutdown. And if that drags on, and it's very likely, that scenario is very likely. But because when you look at the astrology of what's happening at the end of January too, but if that were to happen, I think the most that could happen is you may have like banks could change like the daily limits. Like if you can get out this much, maybe they'll reduce it. Like you can't take out as much money as you could. They can do that. And that helps protect them. Same thing with like credit cards. I think that they would do that. They would give you a limit on how much you can spend. Yeah. And so those are the possibilities. But with a bail-in, I think, and that's why I'm not an expert on these congressional legislation and things, but it does look like they do have the power to take your money if they wanted to. Now, the other thing that I had brought up in a previous live stream months ago is, if there was another collapse, because sure, there's similar patterns when you think about cycles with certain collapses and what happened. And if the last one, the big one, was in 2008, we were living in such different times back then. Netflix didn't even exist. You had to get the DVD 3 at a time in the mail in 2008. Yeah. So TikTok didn't exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think everyone was on MySpace. So you have to think about the times in 2008 and where we are at now. And I think that if anything were to happen, I just always think of hedges, right? Just have hedges. It's always a good idea to maybe have cash at home. I mean, safely. But again, I'm not you do you, but there are possibilities where if there is a collapse, the banks could just close and you can't get your money out and you don't know for how long. That's all I'm saying. But those are very extreme. I just want you to know that, okay? Very extreme possibilities. But it's a better idea. I think that I was talking about was it here when I was talking about the New York City blackout? That I lived through that. And it brought to mind when I saw what happened in Spain. I'm like, you know what? I lived through that New York City blackout. I was literally at the dental office because I had so much pain in my tooth when all the lights went out. All the electricity went out. Nobody knew what was going on. And this was during the day. And so you get on the streets, everyone's trickling out of buildings, like looking around. I had so much pain. And I walked home because you couldn't get a cab. There was just so much confusion. There was no street, all the street lights were out. It was mild chaos during the daytime. So I had to walk home. I walked home. And it was just a situation. It was like, okay, how long is this gonna last? Like, I'm in pain. This hurts. What do I do? And I remember just walking home, just watching everybody. And, I got home and, you just, when you start seeing all the stores giving out ice cream for free because they're all melting, giving out food for anything in the freezer because they're just going to spoil. All the delis, just table set up, take the ice cream, because you don't get news. How do you hear from the mayor? All the electricity's out. You're literally lost in the dark. And I somehow found out that there was a hospital, I think it was Bellevue or something, that was open. It was on generators. And because at that point, like, I was ready to just snatch I was in so much pain. It's like a root canal or something. I remember finding a taxi because it was really far away. You can't go on the subway in a blackout. I remember finding a taxi. We were going so slow. There were too many people on the street. It was like Mardi Gras. Everybody was out. No one had electricity. No one had air conditioning. Everybody was out on the streets. And there was no street lights, no street lamps. And we, eventually got there, thankfully. And I was taken care of, but it was such a process. And when I saw what happened with this blackout in Spain earlier this year, it was just like, yeah, I'm not going to go through that again. So I'm prepared. Like, if there is another blackout, I do have solar panels. I do have like this little generator and you can get them for like $100 on Walmart. It's like, and they last. I mean, but I have candles. I have all of that just to prepare. And it's the same thing when that, by the way, that was unexpected. It came out of nowhere and it was a whole day. It was a whole night. But now with the economy, you have little Easter eggs. You have little, things are pointing in a certain direction. And so it's just, it's a good time to ask yourself, like, ooh, maybe I should do this. Maybe this will be good for me should anything happen. And again, very, very extreme case, worst case scenario is what I'm giving you. But you have to think about those things. And if that brings you peace of mind, like I said, because there is so much uncertainty around a lot of things, then I just say that there's a lot of storylines that are happening this year that will be carried over into 2026, such as the tariff wars, such as the Genius Act and stablecoin, such as the dramatic rise of gold and silver and banks all over the world buying it. And then you also have to throw in the fact that there's more seismic activity now than ever, ever. And they're continuing. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are, could change. Yeah. It could change. But January 26th would be a big date, okay? I think that it all honestly really depends. The decision on January 26th, the decision about moving forward with the budget, I honestly think that it really depends on what happens with the price of gold and silver. So you want to keep your eyes on that, because I think that there can be this decision based on if the price is still really high. A lot of people will say, look, the dollar is dying. We can't pass a budget. Yeah. And then there's another government shutdown. So you got to ask, is that what they want? Yeah. Is that what they want? You can also watch the 10-year treasury yield, that 5% mark. There's just so many factors involved. Nothing is ever easy. Nothing. I mean, it's all a little bit complicated, but I'm thinking more in terms of like sometimes I have to put myself in the place of of a banker or someone who's in this situation or who's part of this decision. Yeah. And so you have to just consider risk factors all the time. Yeah. It's like if you're gonna go take a swim in a beautiful ocean on your vacation to the Maldives, and someone tells you, oh, this ocean, there was a storm and it's full of jellyfish now. But you're like, oh, but it's my last day. I got to go on my flight soon. I mean, you got to consider the risk factors. What were you told? What do you see? Is it worth it? Do you know what I mean? That's what it is. But I understand that it is a place of, we've never experienced this. We've never experienced something like this. And you see systems being dismantled. Like I said, in your 2024 forecast, out like everything, systems and structures and patterns, ways of thinking, everything is going to be, because of the prism portal, for the new. Okay. What else is happening? What else is happening? Yeah, I was gonna do. I feel like I talked so much about that. Abby or Marshall, you said, what is there is mandatory truth serums for all government. That's so funny. Well, that's the other thing is remember, it's a big year of disclosure and it starts in January. Pluto is going to push everything to the surface. Yeah. But even if you take astrology out of the equation, just the fact that people want the truth. People want the truth now. And it gets them angry. People are getting angry for not getting the truth from an institution or any institution or company or corporation that they've relied on for so long. They want the truth now. And as the example of all these documentaries, that's all about disclosure. Just whistleblowers coming out left and right, like they do not care. There's people literally in Congress that saying, yeah, this is actually run like a mafia. Like it's not like they're not even holding back at this point. They're not even holding back. And so I think a lot of these conversations came up with a lot of even the Federal Reserve, and I think a lot of these, I guess, situations and circumstances are really blown up by the media or by social media or whatever it is that's garnering a lot of attention. And I don't even keep up with politics, but the reality is that is like the biggest trending thing right now. That's all anybody wants to talk about. And it's all anything that wants to write about. And I'm just like, they discovered a new ecosystem in Antarctica. Isn't that amazing? How amazing is that? So yeah, but I think that there is a little bit of people getting restless, and I think there are going to be a lot more truths coming to the surface. Remember, coyote, coyote, coyote. Kept saying coyote. Daniel, Daniel, CEOs of the 10 companies you informed us on. Yes, I did. I wrote Target. Where is it? Yeah, throughout the entire year, there's certain people that would come up or companies, and I think Coca-Cola came up. I don't know if anything happened there. Target did come up. There was just like, yeah, I made like at least 60 predictions. New York City earthquake, all the other earthquakes. It's just like it's an endless list, and I don't want to just. But I think the point of this is just showing you this was a bonkers year. There were so many things that happened that were just not normal, but they were, in a way, they were dangling carrots, but also in a way they showed you that there's something happening. These things just don't happen. There's something happening maybe behind the scenes. There's something happen. There's a lot of random things. Yeah. When you have I don't know how many helicopter crashes were there this year with very important people. How many random, like, how random is it that a helicopter in DC just happens to run into a plane? How random is it that someone sitting in a Tesla truck blows himself up in a Las Vegas park? It's like there's so many statements being made, and we don't know who, right? Who? It's all just, there's more higher up stuff. The pickles is what I call them, but it's been a strange year. I even said it in your forecast. 2025 has been an odd year, but in your personal lives, you probably had a lot of big changes, a lot of great things happening. I have friends that have, they moved into new homes, they had children, they got married, they got this new job, they started their business, they launched a business. And so it's very different. Remember, mundane astrology is so different from your personal horoscope. But I hope I made it clear is that everybody will just start adapting to this new world. Yeah. It is a brand new world. Danielle, do you think robbery will reach an all-time high as people get more desperate? Right now, I'm thinking of Gotham City. I don't think so. I think if anything, it'll be because there's a really strong signature of revolution for 2026 with Pluto and Aquarius being highly charged up, and then part of that prism portal that's meant to break things down, right? But Aquarius is the humanitarian, is humane, okay? And so I think there will be, a lot more protests and revolutions that some of them, yes, of course, it's Pluto, so they could be rare. But I think that robbery it's very possible. It really depends on what happens. Yeah. What is the event? Because there's so many different scenarios that could play out with that. But I feel like personally, it wouldn't be person to person if there are robberies. It would just be like Gucci stores or things like that. Yeah. Going into a Walgreens and taking all the Gatorade. Like, I don't think that I do know that because you're talking about Gotham City during COVID, a lot of people left, right? They well, in New York City, a lot of people own homes in Connecticut or wherever. They have a lot more room. So a lot of people left New York City during COVID at the height, at the peak of the lockdown and the quarantine. And there was someone living, my neighbor across the hall had left. And I found out at some point someone was living there, a squatter. And what he was doing was using my friend's apartment as his base to climb on the roof and go into all the empty apartments where people had left. And that's where he would, do his thieving, etc. And the super and I, it was like 3 in the morning where we heard the door close. I was just coming in from something, I don't remember, but we were like, we gotta call the police. So we called the police, and there was maybe 15 police officers, like within like 5 minutes, 15 of them just whoosh, right past us because we were standing outside at that point. It was crazy. He had been wanted for a long time. There had been so many reports from people within that area. I was living in the East Village at the time, and so they got him. So I stopped the criminal. But I hope that answers your question. Marshall, why doesn't the government have a backup plan for blackouts? I'm sure they do. But for them and for certain people, yeah, they do. I was looking at because I let me just pull that. Let me put that. Yeah. So one thing that I was looking at. Okay, that's it. So the U.S. Department of Defense, our military, gets approximately 900 billion a year from our taxes, our hard-earned tax money. Anyway, they get about 900 billion a year. They have money to secure themselves during blackouts. Okay. That's all I'm saying. And remember, they have their underground bases, etc. And it's almost like the movies, but yeah. Bellatrix, should we take our funds outside of the banks? And if so, where? How do we pay our bills if the banks shut down? That's a good question. One of the things that I just learned naturally, and I think it's a common in terms of advice. And again, this isn't coming from me, it's what I've read, is that it's always good to have 30%. Is it 30%? 30% or 3 months or 4 months of your expenses in cash is what I've heard. That's what I've read and heard. I don't do that. I'm just saying that's to protect yourself just in case of emergencies or whatnot. Yeah. And then you ask, how do we pay our bills if the banks shut down? I think it's very similar to, well, if they shut down, they're gonna find a way for you to pay them, like whoever you are, like so. But I think that some of I don't know. Do you remember like COVID where like you had your gym membership, you had this, you had that, like, but you weren't using it. Everyone's locked down, and those companies would, not charge you that month, etc. So I'm not sure. I haven't really spent time going into that, but I think just having some sort of hedge is a good idea. And everyone is different, so everyone will have their own strategy. But just think 3 steps ahead for you. Yeah? Think 3 steps ahead for you. Ozo O'Neill, good morning. Do you still see a tsunami hitting California and San Diego? Yeah, so I'm just saying the West Coast. So yes, that does include California and San Diego. I never got specific cities, but it was like twice that I saw it. And so yes. But I don't know about specific cities. Um I'll revisit that. I'll take another look at that when my next when I have another channeling session or um Shiny Tribe, yes. Can you tell us a really good thing that's coming soon? Yes, I can. Let me really think about this. No, I'm joking. January is going to be amazing. January is going to be really amazing. I feel like I think what's happening with January is you're being taken out of that place of uncertainty and doubt. You're going to start to see movement. You're going to start seeing things come to the surface, but you're also just going to feel really amped up. And I think that for a lot of y'all, I think that you are going to see changes that you're happy with. Yeah. I think that, like I said, there's so many great things that are happening, but I just like, nobody wants it's like new discoveries, etc. Of species. I think there's going to be a lot of advancements in technology that's going to be really great. Like I think that's going to be really improved. I think that medicine is going to be improved. Like anything that there's just so much advancements now, right? There's even with I think even with animals, like I couldn't like with what's happening with Ruby, I couldn't believe like this existed, and this is existed, but we now have the knowledge to do a lot more to advance technology and science and medicine and transportation and whatnot. So yeah, I think that that's something really I'm really excited. I'm really excited. Holograms, come on, that's going to be amazing. And I think that there's also going to be a shift in the way that we communicate with each other and relate with each other. I think that I said community is going to be a key word, right? The 4 C's, you remember the 4 C's? Community, the collective, courage, and consciousness being expanded. Contact may happen next year. I think I mentioned that there are what do you call them? NHI, non-human intelligence, like all around us in all these dimensions. And we do live in a 3D world, but we know that there are other dimensions beyond that. We can't see that because we're not beyond that, but they would be on the outsides of that. So they're all around. But I think there will be true contact in a really nice way. And I think that there will be just by the time we get to summer, I feel like everyone's going to be, and I think there's just going to be this huge cultural shift, with the collective too. I think people are going to be a lot more laid back and they just really want to have fun and just so happy that certain things are just over with. Yeah. Beverly, you said, I'm wondering if that monster storm that hit California this week was the water you saw. No. But there has been a lot of water events. And, I think one of the things that was really telling was back in July with the flooding in Texas that and this is a lot of things. that we didn't have answers for, right? Happened in 2025. There were a lot of questions, a lot of eyebrows raised around a lot of things, like the orbs. What are these orbs? They're all over the world, etc. There's all this new evidence coming out with, vaccines and COVID, and they're just, again, so much information, but so many questions. And I think that there is something to be said about even that was just atypical. Those floods, the same thing with the earthquake, atypical. And so truly unexpected things did happen in 2025 that I would say, like, first of its kind, in ways that don't demonstrate the pattern that we recognize. Yeah. So I think that there is going to be a lot more of that, and it might be the standard, but we'll see. We'll see. Remember, technology is advancing. We have sonar. They couldn't do that 20 years ago. They couldn't take a sonar and see what was underneath the pyramid. No, they couldn't do that. So remember, technology is just advancing in ways that you could have never imagined. And remember, I've seen a lot of it. One of my predictions last year was, the health of a leader. And I remember seeing all these medical devices. I was like, hell, like, you've never seen it before. So they actually exist. And speaking of the military, who gets 900 billion annually, or the Department of Defense, yes, of course it exists. They have technology that's maybe 20, 30 years ahead that we don't even know about. And, it's, why would they let us know, right? Like, why would they? I think a good way to frame that is they had the internet for 20 years before releasing it to the public. So anyway, Elmog, are we heading for a big social revolution like the French Revolution, or Iceland's huge women's protest of the past, revolt against the autocracies, the ruling class? Well, did you look at your 2026 forecast? I was dropping you Easter eggs. Y'all need to come on. This is me testing you on waking up. We gotta wake up. You're moving into the year of the Great Awakening. You gotta wake. No, I'm joking. But yes, Pluto in Aquarius. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was 250 years ago. What happened then? It was the French Revolution. It was the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so remember, a lot of these planets, when they return to certain signs like Uranus and Gemini, same thing. 84 years. What happened 84 years ago? What happened 84 years before that? There are cycles, right? So, yeah. Remember, but it's power to the people, not against the people, to the people, for the people. Yeah. And your question about revolt against the autocracies, the ruling class. Well, I did bring up over this summer, you're going to have Jupiter opposite Pluto. Okay? Jupiter, which will be in Leo, the king, opposite Pluto in Aquarius, the people. And those are outer planets. So that's not a day event. All right. I drop you east. You gotta look at your 2026 forecast again. Listen, I spent so much time on that. And when I do that, there's like an episode of Lost. You got really pay attention. There's stuff in there that I'm dropping y'all. Or Bridgerton or something. There's Easter eggs all over your 2026 forecast. I think I did it for your January forecast too. Yeah, I dropped you Easter eggs and little clues and hints. But yeah, it is going to be a lively year, okay? Let's just say lively year, especially when you know the North Node will be in Aquarius at that point, and the South Node will be in Leo, the King. South Node of the past of but also remember, it's not like you bought tickets to a show. It's an event it's years long, okay? Elmog, will we finally make headway with sound therapy, healing, rehabilitation? Yes. I think that's going to be a norm. I think you're going to see that a lot more. Okay? I think it's going to be something that, because not only are we expanding our consciousness, we are in a time of even we evolve, right? Human beings evolve. We're these living, breathing things with cells and DNA, etc. And that's impacted all the time too. But there is this really strong movement where it's all about exploring alternative methods of healing. I absolutely sound therapy, healing, rehabilitation. I did say a key word for 2025, or a buzzword would be plasma. And I mean, you're just going to see it everywhere. You have been with the flares, with energy. Anyway, it'll still be a big thing for 2026. But yes, I think there will be huge gains in that area. Especially when Chiron moves into Taurus too. Taurus is the, body. I think it's time they said hello. The Galactics. They do say hello. But I know what you mean. Yeah. It is time, and I think that there will be I actually, one thing that came up in one of my channeling sessions, it just took so long for me to actually say it, because it was just like, I don't know how people are going to react to this, but I went ahead and did it. And so it is on greatawakener.com. All the live streams I do there are archived, but I think that there's going to be some things that are so shocking in terms of like these disclosures and revelations, and people are going to react to them. But at the same time, I think people are just going to be like, I'm not surprised. So think of all the new things that you experienced this year. And were you like, oh my gosh, drones the size of trucks over my, or were you like, another drone? Okay. So anyway, Danielle, I think they've already created AI with emotions. Yes. And I said that over the summer. I said that it was whenever Sam Altman, when he made the statement that the potential to reach AGI, it's the next level of AI. He said that's within 5 years. No, they already have it. They already have it. Government uses it. Only certain people, but yeah, it already exists. It's the same thing with any product. Like if you think, I don't know, if you think about your iPhone, for instance, they already have the prototype for, 5 years from now, right? They're not just doing it like, oh, what should we do next? And no, they plan, like any big company will have these prototypes. And anyway, but yeah, so that's why you see those releases where they just add a little bit here, a lot of it here, and they got to just continue to, QA and test things out. But yeah, it's it's gonna be a year. It's gonna be a year. um Big hair girls, you asked, should we be holding more precious metals as assets? Yes. The entire first half of this, yes, I would watch. I would watch. But the big answer is yes. And you also asked, also, will we finally get access to the cure for cognitive decline? I'm not sure if that is something. It's very possible that it's released. If that makes sense. I believe it already exists, but it's possible it is released. But yeah, I think that's a little bit more of a sensitive area when you're working with someone's cognition. But I think that there's mild treatments that do exist that's stronger, if there is anything out now. I think that I have read reports of like dementia. I think that I've read reports that there's like just medicine has advanced significantly in the past few years for that. So yeah. Yeah. So okay, y'all, I gotta go. I have to go. Danielle, the Great Flood movie on Netflix is interesting, especially if you haven't watched it yet. I can't wait. I think that I had said last week, it was, what day is today? Saturday. It was last weekend. Last weekend was the first time since July I was able to turn on my TV. I've never, because I'm coming out of everything now. And you probably see a difference in me too, because everything that I've been going through for the past few months with Saturn opposite my moon, Neptune opposite my moon, both of them square my Jupiter, Uranus on my ascendant, Chiron square my Pluto, like all overlapping at the same time was not easy at all. At all. Like, but I'm finally coming out of it, because remember, those are longer aspects. Those are months long. It's not like the inner planets like Venus or Mercury, but those, yeah, they stay on top. So that was really exciting for me. I like it was and I turned on Netflix. I'm like, what shows did I miss this season? It was literally since I didn't even know what was out. I probably spent an hour just looking at the like shows on Hulu and HBO Max and Apple TV, like whatever it was, but I didn't even end up watching them. I watched Survivor. I finally was able to see the entire season. And that is a benefit when you're like trapped for 6 months and chained to your desk and going to physical therapy. And Ruby says hi to that. Where is she? Is that you don't have to wait every week for the new episode of Survivor to come out. You can binge it all, the entire season, in like a day, which I did. Coco, good question. New visions with the Tower Hotel fire you saw. No, that's still there. So that is something that I saw. It's still there. And there's still many things in the notebooks I haven't even gotten to. So I will. Will there be discussions regarding, or sorry, disclosures regarding the food industry? Yeah, actually that was one of my predictions that I made last year. And I think it was food processing. There was something that I saw with food processing, and I brought it up again, I think in May or June. and then there was all of do y'all remember all the callbacks for like tuna from this company or the like calling back the food from here? There was so much of that. But yeah, I think there will be. And I think it's already happening. I think it's already happening. I think there's a little bit of things are ramping up in that direction. I think there's going to be a lot more attention around the food industry and food processing and farming and growing when people find out that um, Bill Gates and China own most of our farmland in the United States. Like, I mean, it's just like all these things that people, it's just, it will never make like your 11 Alive News or whatever, or CNN or any of that. But yeah, I think there will be. I think there will be. Um, but there was something else that you're reminding me of. I did see some sort of water shortage, and that's in my books in like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I don't know what that's about. Again, I have to. I mean, that's all I got. Remember, sometimes I just see things and they come fast and I have to scribble. So I don't have enough time to dissect, but that was something that came up. I didn't get dates for that. Some things I get dates for, a lot of things I don't. Sometimes I only get dates. I'm like, okay. But y'all, thank you so much, y'all. Really great catching up with you. Happy 2026. I should have your forecast. I'm almost back on track. I'm almost back on track on my regular schedule, but for now, they still may be coming out Thursdays instead of Wednesdays. I cannot wait for when is daylight savings? It gets dark at like 3:30 now. So even if I do your like forecast during the day, it's like nighttime. It's banana sauce. But happy New Year, everybody. If I don't see you before, I think I might. Oh yeah, I will. I think I will because I think that Nick Dagan Best and I will do a January thing. But anyway, y'all amazing. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And just again, 2026 is all about knowing everything will change. Even things you didn't think could change are gonna change. Everything. Remember, we're going through some cycles, we're going through a new era. So when I say everything, yes, we covered technology, we covered geophysics, we covered like institutions, banking, government, economy, pets. We covered everything. Everything's changing. Okay? Everything's changing, but it's more for you to get in preparation mode, and you are going to feel this charge when you're probably already feeling it with Mars and Capricorn, but just in the Sun in Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn. But wait until they get together. Wait until they conjunct. Oh, you're going to feel that. And we will have that full moon in Cancer on the 3rd. It's a big one. It's a good one. It's a good one. I think I told you in your forecast. That's the great day to make New Year's resolutions, not the 1st. If you make New Year's resolutions on the 31st or January 1st, just don't commit to them. Write them down in your journal. January 3rd, that's when you go back and you're like, okay. So you can, if you want, on January 1st. It'll be fun. But no, the real ones would be more around like January 3rd or the 4th. Yeah? Okay. So, Danielle, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the Scooby snack for Ruby. She always hides like right behind me, but she is here. She's like right there. She's right there. And I think that she has to now do water therapy in the pool. And yeah. Anyway. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing weekend. It's a great weekend. Where's the moon right now? Actually, I'll tell you what kind of weekend you'll have. Let me look at the, let me see. Oh yeah, I already told you, moon in Aries. Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's gonna, I mean, square Venus. It's moving out of it though. It's fine. You're fine. You're good. You're gonna, it will, it's gonna square Jupiter too, but you're fine. You're good. You're gonna, I mean, it's at 6 degrees. You're really feeling it because it is with Pluto right now. Okay. Sextile Pluto. Oh, you feel charged up. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I will see you very soon. And if I don't, happy 2026, the year of 10, meaning the year of 1, the blood dragon. Isn't that right? Or something? Okay. I'm gonna go. You're seeing a lot of my Gemini rising today. Thank you so much. I'll see y'all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.